Joining us now is former prosecutor Philip Snyder.
Philip, what did you think when you heard the verdict?
I wasn't surprised at all. The state made a poor filing decision from the onset. I think murder 2 was a huge stretch. And when they were arguing their case throughout the trial, they painted themselves in a corner: ill will, spite, or hatred. I think they lost a lot of credibility with the jury. I think they would have had a much better chance of a conviction had a manslaughter charge been set forth at the onset.
So, Philip, I've heard a number of people say what you just said, that murder 2 was a stretch. Why do you think they went with murder 2?
Well, I think Angela Corey was spearheading this campaign from the beginning, and I think it was unfortunate because John Guy and Bernie De La Rosa were caught in a situation where they had to argue adamantly for things that clearly the state was unable to prove. So throughout this trial, the ill will, spite, or hatred, it just wasn't plausible, and I think that if they would have made a manslaughter argument from the beginning and just a common sense argument, they would have had a much better shot at a conviction, although I still think that based on the law, the jury made the right verdict.
Philip, what do you think about that? That at the end of the day, George Zimmerman did follow Trayvon Martin after the police told him not to. And so people today, there is still in some corners a feeling of, something different should have happened.
You know, I wouldn't disagree with that. I've spoken to a lot of people about this case, and they're just torn because they feel so bad for this individual that, you know, it doesn't seem like he was doing anything wrong at the onset. And George Zimmerman clearly was doing some sort of profiling or pursuing whatever that may be. But that doesn't negate the fact that once the incident started and after, the state did not prove their case. So I think that Bernie De La Rosa's comments, and especially Angela Corey's comments, were very inappropriate. They should have first went to the Martin family, apologized, consoled them before they came out with this press conference, pretty much still saying that they believe their case was correct and accurate.
Her comments were pretty over the top, I thought. To what extent did politics influence the state's decision to bring charges in the first place, do you think?
Oh, absolutely. I think that you know, watching Angela Corey, it felt like she was on the Oscars and she was taking her 15 minutes of fame. As a former prosecutor, I was candidly disgusted by her actions. I think that she's the one that initiated this campaign. She's the one that spearheaded this campaign. And I think the fact that she did not even console the Martin family prior to coming out with this grandstanding is an abomination, and she should be disgusted.
Philip, I think that it would help people today hear from the jurors and what their rationale was and what the deliberations were like. Although, as we know, they can choose to stay anonymous. The judge gave them anonymity through this. We don't know their names or addresses, obviously. Do you think that any of them will ever come forward?
That's a good question. Normally in a high-profile case, the jurors want to come forward because they like the limelight and they want to explain their position to the media. That being said, in this case, I think it's going to be unlikely for the jury to come forward. They did such a good job of making sure their identity was anonymous for the reason that they don't want any backlash now that there is an acquittal. For that reason, I think it would be unlikely for the jury to come forward, at least until some of the heat calms down, and maybe later they could share their story with the public.
So what are you saying? Are you saying that the country's so out of control that jurors are afraid to come and publicly comment on the case because they're going to get hurt? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think that it's possible that in the jurors' minds that the public is out of control. Remember,
that's scary.
You know, at this point, everything has been under control. But prior to the verdict coming out, there was a lot of Twitter feeds, there were a lot of social media feeds that said, if George Zimmerman was acquitted, there are going to be riots and there's going to be repercussions. Yeah. So I think that for their own safety, they may feel that it's in their best interest and their family's best interest to lay low until the heat calms down, and then they'll be happy to share their story with the public.